welcome to New Bedford Cable Access. Today we're talking to Midori Creativity
Hi.
about two events that are running in New Bedford. One of them being a free event that you run regularly here. Is that correct?
Yes. Yep.
All right. I'm so excited to get started.
Me too.
I'm glad you're here. Can you tell me a little bit about Midori Creativity, what it does, what's your mission, and how you got your start?
The idea of Midori Creativity got started in 2019 during the summer. I attended an E4All business incubator program here in New Bedford. And then in 2020, Midori Creativity got really formalized because I completed my creativity coaching certification with the Creativity Coaching Association.
And what draws you to work with creatives and creative-minded people?
I believe that the more creativity we have in the world, and the more that individuals pursue the creative things that they care about, really the better world that we will have. From my perspective, the left brain has won out for too long, and we need a little bit more right brain in this world. It feels sometimes like the linear, planning, goal setting, concrete way of approaching the world, it's not the only way of being in the world. And we need a little bit more mystery, and we need a little bit more creativity. I have so many people telling me that they have these ideas about creative pursuits that matter to them, and somehow they don't make the time. And are they not making the time because they feel like it's not important in the world? Sometimes that is what people say to me. And if we can encourage every individual to honor their own creativity and find time for it, it just makes for a happier and better world.
Have you run events in New Bedford in this area in the past?
Because I started with E4All in the summer of 2019, I did quite a lot of programming back then as part of my business training. I ran some programs in various places around the South Coast, including at the Co+Creative Center in New Bedford. We did Creativity Abloom conversations, which was really just kind of coming together and talking about what matters to you, what do you do that's creative. Now, keep in mind that creativity does not have to just be artistic. A lot of people really associate those two things together, but there's creative inventors, you're creative when you're cooking and making up a new recipe. It's a very broad and inherent part of everyday life for every human being on this planet. And other programs that we ran back pre-pandemic days, we had salon discussions, and we would find a topic that was connected to creativity. One of the ones that people really enjoyed was about walking. So in what ways can walking connect with opening you up to new creative ideas? And there are many, many different artists and writers who have proclaimed that that's when they get their best ideas, is when they're out for a walk. So the salon discussion event had people reading ahead of time and then coming together with deep discussion questions. And we shared them around the table. That was also at the Co+Creative Center. It was a lot of fun.
Are the events you run mainly paid, free, donation supported?
Midori Creativity runs a variety of workshops, programming, some for small groups, some for larger groups. Many of them are free or donation requested. We occasionally will run a paid event. It really depends on grant programming. So the more grant programming that we can get, the more opportunities we have to offer very low cost programs to people. This makes it available to anybody rather than just being available to a certain group of people. And we really want to be able to share the message of the inspiration and the excitement about all of our activities to as many people who can participate as possible.
So, Midori, tell us more about you. What inspired you to build this community of creativity and these events surrounding the creative space, the creative mind, writing?
I had just moved down here when I started Midori Creativity, and community events are an amazing way to connect with other writers, with other artists. And I must admit, it was a little selfish because I wanted to meet other artists in this new area. I've moved a variety of times. I've almost always lived in Massachusetts, but in different communities. And I have no problem going out and just starting something to find out who's out there and what's happening here. The other part of doing community programming is I want to create meaningful experiences for people. It's very important, and everything that we do at Midori Creativity is about meaningful work and finding opportunities for sometimes for the deeper questions that get brushed over, other times for doing activities together. And there's nothing more important than just connecting in your local community and finding other people who both differ from you that you want to learn from, and people who have similar ideas and share similar passions, and that you get to do your passion together. It's great.
And what experience do you have with creative pursuits? Have you sought to do anything creative in your time?
Oh, I have loads of experience with creative pursuits. I am a musician. I grew up playing both the French horn and the piano. I don't play the French horn anymore, but I still play the piano. I'm also a writer. I'm a photographer. And creativity is in everything. Earlier we were talking about how it's creative when you're cooking. I also think of when you change a habit, that's creativity. It sounds really small, right? But how often do you walk out the door and turn in exactly the same direction or take the exact same route to get somewhere? We're in our habits way more than we realize. And creativity is about opening to new ideas. And sometimes even what we think we're going to write about. I hear this all the time in my writers group. People will say, I had no idea that story was in me. And then all it took was this simple little prompt. And I found myself writing about either a character I knew nothing about that sort of appeared out of nowhere, or it could be a family story that you thought was just buried and it emerges. So it's about the opening. And creative pursuits for me, for a long time, it was a wonderful job, and I still do it some, but of course I have lots of time devoted to building Midori Creativity. But I used to be an individual tutor for students of all sorts of different ages, and I was lucky enough to do enrichment work with a lot of them, which would just be about curiosity, like what are you interested in that you're not learning at school? Oh, let's go explore, let's find an interesting book, let's interview someone. So it's about staying open to the world and finding new ideas and new things that excite you every day of your life.
Awesome. So as now I've heard, you have an event coming up at the Wamsutta Club here in New Bedford. Can you tell me about that event?
Oh yes, Inspirit Your Writing is coming up on Saturday, April 13th from 1 to 4 in the afternoon. It's happening at the Wamsutta Club in New Bedford. And I can't tell you how excited I am. So it's going to be with Midori Creativity. It's with another writers group that meets at the Wamsutta Club on a regular basis, most Wednesday nights. And it's going to be with Maggie Jackson. Maggie Jackson's been doing some readings around the South Coast since her book Uncertain came out. This workshop is going to be different. So Maggie will be there doing some reading, and she will be there with her books for sale. But she's going to focus her conversation and her presentation on the idea of writer's block and what it means to be uncertain as a writer. It's just a really exciting opportunity to link some of the ideas in her book about how being uncertain can be, yes, it's scary. It's something we're not used to. But acknowledging uncertainty and being able to exist in that sphere and in that realm of thinking can actually open up a lot of opportunity. There can be strength in that idea. So the way the workshop is going to run is Maggie will do her presentation, and then we get a good half of the workshop time for us to meet in small groups, to talk about what writer's block feels like, or even just what it feels like when you know you're creatively blocked in some way. And we'll have some writing exercises, and a bunch of different writers are going to help contribute to creating those questions. It's really going to be a fabulous time. I also want to say that it's available for writers at any level. So sometimes I have people who like to write in their journals, and they say, oh, I'm not supposed to come to a workshop like that because I just write in my journal. No, this is not about being an official writer or publishing your work, although clearly that's a path you can take if it's of interest to you. Really what it's about is you believing in yourself as a writer. So every human being can write. And if you've chosen to spend time on it and you care about it, then you will have some new experiences and some openings if you get a chance to come to the workshop. And then her books will again be on sale there. And for the second half, we get to have writer-written group exercises where we can share about what was your experience recently when you had writer's block, or have you ever been just kind of in a pit? Sometimes people are in pits for years where they can't kind of connect to the part of themselves that wants to write or wants to be out writing music or taking a photograph. For this workshop, for the writers, we'll be doing some actual writing exercises, both group and solo, and it will all be framing the concept of honoring being uncertain and finding the learning in being uncertain. We are trained to be knowledgeable. So we tend to look up to people who say, I've got all the answers, I've got it figured out. But what if being uncertain meant that we asked better questions or we asked different questions? And we found ways to work together with diverse participants, and we did cross-pollination. All of that is in the idea of being uncertain.
Now, Maggie Jackson, the author of this book, can you tell me a little bit more about her? Is this her first book?
I've known Maggie now for a few years. She and I do cold water swimming together. There are a bunch of groups of people who are around the South Coast who go swimming throughout the winter in the cold ocean water. And Maggie's one of my friends from that. I've always been a swimmer, but I tended to get out of the water in around Thanksgiving and not get back in again until May. But 2 years ago, I started going year round, and I have a bunch of friends that we do that together. It's a wonderful experience. You should come find us sometime down in Westport or in Little Compton in the ocean. Maggie's written 2 other books that have also gotten high praise, along with Uncertain, which is, again, winning awards. She wrote a book called Distracted, which is about how the digital world influences our ability to stay focused. And that won the 2020 Dorothy Lee Award, and it was about reclaiming your focus with all of this distractions. We're living in a distracted age. She also wrote What's Happening to Home, about work-life balance and how home used to be a refuge, and that sometimes work responsibilities impact our ability to make home a refuge. If you go onto her website at maggie-jackson.com, you'll also see that she's contributed to a variety of anthologies, and you can read even more about these books. I do want to read one quote about Uncertain, because Uncertain looks at the opportunity in not knowing. And from her website, how could we find the clarity and vision so urgently needed today by not knowing? Uncertain is about the unsung triumph of doing just that. And the connections between Maggie's book and creativity and the creative programming that Midori Creativity does, creativity does often feel like you're stepping into the unknown. If you've got a plan, it feels comforting. And without a plan, and just sitting down at your desk with nothing that you know you're going to work on, that can feel overwhelming. But sometimes being able to sit in the silence and sit in the unknowing and open yourself up. One of the ideas that I share in my workshops quite often is this idea of a creative river, that you can almost just reach your hand right up and sort of almost pluck an idea out. You don't have to know what that idea is before you start writing or painting or composing. In my writing workshops, I hear this all the time. People will talk about how they sat down with what seemed like a simple little prompt, and all of a sudden there's a story that emerges out of them that they didn't know was there. Or they find something that they've been wanting to write about for the longest time, and all of a sudden there's an opening. The more comfortable you are with not having a plan and being able to let go of some of your goals, you can have goals as a general guideline, but I find sometimes that having a very specific goal puts blinders on, and you might lose the path, the one that's a little different, that you might actually really want to be following.
And the book, titled Uncertain by Maggie Jackson, what's it about?
I know that she had opinion pieces in both CNN and the New York Times about the topics in Uncertain. I just want to read one quote about what Uncertain is actually about. How could we find the clarity and vision so urgently needed today by not knowing? Uncertain is about the unsung triumph of doing just that.
How do you feel that ties in with the creative work that you do in this region and in the South Coast as a whole?
Creativity is often about stepping into the unknown. It does feel uncertain to pursue creative pursuits. Is this really what I want to be capturing? Am I capturing the depth of my idea in the right way, or in a way that will be understood by others? We're often trained to write a plan, set a specific goal, and plan it out, and voila, you'll have your product, you'll have your result. But the creative process doesn't really work like that. The creative process involves a lot of feeling uncertain. It involves a lot of questioning. And the more comfortable you can get in that place, the easier it is to sort of move in and out between the left brain, between the right brain, between these different parts of ourselves, in order for you to be able to make room for that creative process to breathe in you and to be available to you when you have time to pursue what you care about. I am not really a big fan of goals. I've experienced for myself that goals work best for me when they're written backwards, when I am aware of a general direction that I'm traveling in, and then I see the goal after the fact, which is very different from sitting down and setting a goal and then putting on your blinders and going straight there. The creative process can bring up these deep questions that sometimes make you realize you are going in the wrong direction and something new or different wants to be produced.
So the second half of the event, there's this writing workshop portion. What will that entail, and what will that experience be like for people?
It's not a typical writer's workshop. It's not a lecture. The part of the workshop where we will be working together is about sharing. It's about group connection. It's about bouncing ideas off of each other and then still getting some time to write on your own. It's about exploring. Midori creativity workshops are different in that they want you to feel connected to a change while you're in the workshop. So it's about doing. It's about creating. It's about training yourself to change the habits that can keep you blocked. And it's definitely about empowering you as a creative person.
Do many of your events include time for attendees to practice the skills they learn?
Another thing that's different about some of the Midori creativity events is we do things together. We feel empowered, we share our stories, and we connect. There's sometimes if you're loosely welcoming people into a group and the leader doesn't feel too much pressure to come up with all the answers, it's okay to be a little uncertain as the leader. If your role is there to facilitate, it can open up some space for the people who come to the workshops to learn a little bit more about their own process, and then to get skills from a variety of people, to ask different questions. So it's really not about just imparting knowledge. It's about finding the places for that knowledge to come from within inside you. If you're interested in attending the event, you can find postings about it either on MidoriCreativity.com. It's also on Eventbrite where you can get a ticket. It's at inspirityourwriting.eventbrite.com.
Now, you have another event in New Bedford. Can you tell me more about Artist Share and where it takes place?
Artist Share has been running for a long time. It's one of the first programs I started, and we've been running for almost 5 years now. Artist Share meets at the Co+Creative Center on the second Tuesday of the month from 6:30 to 8. It's a free event or a donation if you are able to give something to keeping it going. And we welcome artists and creatives of any genre. We've had jewelry makers, photographers, painters, sculptors, all writers, all sorts of different people, musicians. It's not about only meeting with your tribe and getting very specific advice about materials or about how to use a certain technique. It's more about the cross-pollination that happens when people from different backgrounds and different perspectives come together. There's so many incredible questions that we dive into. There's a lot of deep asking of the other artists. What is it? What's the message that you want me to feel when I look at your work? Or what were you aiming for when you were doing this? And how can we help you really manifest your vision? What's exciting to me about Artist Share is that it's gone through a variety of manifestations. So we met in person before the pandemic hit. Then we were online, and we actually got people coming from all over the country. We had a photographer from San Francisco who did a lot of street photography. And because it was the pandemic, he was outside. That was his way of still having interaction with people without being too exposed. And he shared a lot of his street photography with us. We set up the meetings so that people can come and say whether or not they're ready to share. And you don't have to have a body of work that's ready to share. You can be exploring a new idea. You can be thinking about your identity as an artist and want to share some ideas about that. It's a very non-judgmental, very welcoming community. And we're, like I said, we're heading into our 5th year. We'd love to have you join us.
Now, Midori Creativity has pioneered many events here in the South Coast. If you could bring one of your other events here to New Bedford for the community and for the people around us, what would you bring?
Last year in Fall River, we ran a series of workshops called Write with Community. It was generously funded by the Social Enterprise Greenhouse in Providence. And it was about bringing writers from a diverse set of communities together to both connect around resource sharing, to connect around identities as a writer, and to explore what it would mean to have a more connected literary community around the South Coast. I can easily see bringing that event to New Bedford. It would be awesome. We do have it happening again this year in Fall River in the fall. So again, you can go to MidoriCreativity.com to get more information or send over an email if you're interested in attending. Last year when we did it, we had a range of ages from mid-20s to mid-70s, and we had people from at least 10 different communities, including from as far away as Pawtucket and Woonsocket, Rhode Island. What I love about that is you never know who's going to have an idea about an event that they've been to, a book they've read, some trick they used when they were writing and experiencing writer's block. When you make the space, people come to find those connections. And New Bedford has so many amazing things already going on here, but that doesn't mean that there isn't room for one more and room for another program that welcomes diverse approaches to life.
Midori, so my next question. What about this city, this community, New Bedford, is most inspiring to you?
I really love New Bedford. I think it has warm and wonderful people. It's got this fascinating history, And the degree of artistic and creative work that is happening here is truly incredible. The Co+Creative Center is an awesome place to connect with other creatives. New Bedford Creative is doing all of this amazing work. And I think anybody who is living here can really take advantage of a variety of creative and cultural opportunities. It's just very exciting to have so much happening. One of the other things that I like about New Bedford is that I'm one of those people who I don't quite like big cities anymore, but I also need some of the energy and the vibrancy of a city. And New Bedford's that perfect size, plus it's on the ocean, which is amazing. And I encourage anybody to just explore even more and see what's happening here in New Bedford.
So to grow from that question, what do you think other artists can get from this city, from this community, from the places around us?
New Bedford is one of those perfect mixtures of, it's just small enough to feel really connected and safe, and it's also big enough to have all this awesome energy coming into it. I look forward every time I read about new things happening in New Bedford, the New Bedford Light Artists group that meets, the New Bedford Creatives doing so much amazing work and making all these opportunities available for people. I think any artist who's here in New Bedford can take advantage of all sorts of different creative and cultural opportunities. I almost feel like I can't list them. There are so many to take advantage of. It's about opening your eyes, talking to people, and finding out where is there that group that you really want to connect with.
All right. Midori, do you have any social media that our viewers can follow or look out for to know about other free events that are happening in their area that they can access so they can go and be creative and follow all these pursuits that you bring up so much?
Again, if you're interested in literary events, you can always check out our calendar, which we're trying to build into a South Coast area literary calendar. So send us a note if you'd like us to post that at MidoriCreativity.com. You can also follow us on Instagram at MidoriCreativity.com. On Facebook, it's Creativity Midori, and then again on the website, MidoriCreativity.com. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. That was Midori of Midori Creativity. We are happy to say hi to her, and we're happy to say hi to you, everybody. This is Artist Space, and we can't wait to share with you again.